Growing up frugal can lead to a mix of positive and negative ramification in your adulthood, depending on the motivation and the severity behind being frugal when you were a child. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about my childhood and how I feel whether or not it helped me or hurt me as an adult. I hope you will stick around. So, experts say that if you grew up frugal, it can build financial responsibility and resourcefulness, extreme frugality, but it can also foster anxiety, guilt, and it can give you a limiting scarcity mindset, depending on the circumstances that you were raised. Now, many of you know I was raised by Depression era parents. My parents were in high school during World War II. They were around during a lot of the rationing, and my mother's oldest brother was also drafted into the war. This formed a lot of their mindsets as they raised their four children here on the prairie in Kansas, and I am the youngest of those four. My grandparents went through the Dust Bowl. I have family that came over roughly around the 1880s over on my dad's side and more around the 1600s on my mom's side. They came over and gained land and began farming and harvesting and trying to build a life for themselves on the prairie. And just to kind of show you the kind of family that I came from, this was in the newspaper from my great uncle. It was 1882 that he came over. He was the eldest of three brothers. He landed here with his wife, three small children, $23, a wagon with no two wheels that were alike, and a yoke of white oxen, which he broke the sod on the homestead. This homestead has never been mortgaged or sold. That was in the newspaper when he passed away. They don't write things like that anymore. There's so much history, and I love the way some of that stuff was written because it really gives you a feel for that person. Now we don't see those kinds of things in obituaries, but I had to share that with you because that shows the kind of hard driven stock that I come from. We didn't do this out of severity. We did it out of determination. We did it out of building a better life for ourselves and for our family. And we didn't look at being frugal as being a hardship. We looked at it as stepping stones to building a better life. So, because I feel like living frugally growing up caused me to have positive ramifications, we're going to focus on those today. One of the first positive ramifications that you can gain from being raised in this type of environment where hardship is not focused on, but frugality for building a better future is focused on. Adults can become thoughtful planners that focus on goals and focus on good time management, including managing their resources of money, energy, and income. And I think that describes me. I mean, I try to focus on those things. I try to focus on managing my income wisely and managing my resources wisely and also managing my time wisely so that frugal living is easy for me and it benefits me in many ways, including my pocketbook. So, those are some of the things that I was raised to focus on. And I feel like they are a huge positive influence in my life. Another positive attribute to being raised frugally with this mindset is that we learn to put things off that we want. That delayed gratification isn't hard for us, it just comes naturally. It comes naturally for us to save our money and then purchase it, or sometimes save our money and then change our mind and decide, hey, I don't want it that bad now. That impulse purchase is a lot less for us. We don't have that instinct to go buy something as soon as we get the thought in our head. We're able to make a wish list, plan for it, and sit back and decide later, is this really how I want to spend my money once that money is there? Another positive skill that frugal children grow up to have when they have this positive influence of frugality in their childhood is learning to be good negotiators. And sometimes this even helps us in our careers without us realizing it. I grew up watching my parents, who were Depression era raised, to buy cars brand new with cash and negotiating the price and then paying in cash and counting out the $100 bills that they had saved. Now that sounds crazy. And back then, new cars were like $4,000 or something like that. But I grew up watching that, and that stuck with me, sitting there thinking, wow, my parents have the cash to buy this, and they can sit here and get less of a cost for the car by sitting here and saying, if I pay cash, what am I going to get for that? If you have that money in your hand today, what can you give me besides the car? And I watched them negotiate that. And I still use that today. I recently got new window bids, and that's one of the things that I used is, if I pay cash, what kind of a discount am I going to get? Another positive attribute to being raised frugal is financial stability. It is easier for me to figure out ways to save money and build that security. And I know that I'm going to be okay. I have that confidence that goes along with it. Sometimes when you're raised in an environment where money is scarce or people are spending too much and in debt all of the time, that can give you that scarcity feeling. But I grew up knowing that saving would give me confidence and security, and I was able to prioritize that. That's something that's really underrated, is that sense of financial security that goes along with being frugal can really benefit you as an adult. Nowadays, what people have is usually more focused on than the financial security that they have. If we see people with a really nice house and they have a really nice car, maybe they have a pool, maybe they have a four-wheeler, all these things, we look at them and think they're doing really well, when behind the scenes, they might be owing for all of that stuff and really struggling. And that's something that today's society doesn't focus on, is the financial security. We focus on appearances and what it looks like somebody has. Another thing that cannot be underrated is the creative problem solving that goes with being raised frugally, where you are raised to reuse things, repair things, use it up, wear it out, use all of it before you buy more. And I think that is so imperative to being raised frugally and being in that financially secure area that we just talked about. If you don't have some of these philosophies in your home, you're going to have to make more money to buy things when they are either almost gone or they need repaired, or you don't have something that you think you can use in its place. So those creative mindsets can actually save you a lot of money and build your financial security. A frugally raised child who was raised with these mindsets could grow up to be less materialistic. And that's where I fall, especially. Christmas looked like our sock out of the drawer. I would get the biggest knee sock I had to hold the most. I would get an orange, an apple. I would get peanuts in the shell. Once in a while, we would get like a giant candy cane, one of those really big ones, and mom would beat it up with a hammer into little pieces and put it into bowls. And we would get to have a piece every now and then of this big candy cane. We didn't just sit down and eat the whole thing at one setting, we had little chips off of that to make it last. And a lot of times, people that are raised with the mindset of enjoying the things that you have less of a desire to be more materialistic and have more things. Oftentimes we are more content with having less things or less expensive things than someone that has maybe been raised where they're used to having a lot of stuff. I've ran into this recently with a couple of friends of mine who are raising kids in their 40s. So the parents are in their 40s, their kids are teenagers, and they are trying to give their kids everything that they think they didn't get as a child. And then because of that, the child is expecting it and unhappy when they don't get the best of everything. And then the parents are sitting back going, where did I go wrong? Well, when you give a child too much because you think you didn't have enough, sometimes they will grow up thinking they are entitled to those things and thinking that they should have those and that that is normal. I didn't grow up with that mindset. I grew up getting color books for Christmas, getting a new doll, getting new pajamas, new underwear. It was always the same stuff, but it was brand new. And I was excited because I didn't know what my new pajamas were going to look like. I didn't know what my new doll was going to look like. It never occurred to me that I should get something else besides the normal stuff every year. I expected the normal stuff and I was excited about it. And I looked forward to getting a new one. So I didn't grow up with the mindset of I don't have enough. I grew up with everything I got was appreciated and enjoyed. So that leads me into the next ramification of being raised frugally with this mindset is gratitude. I had thankfulness for the new items at Christmas, even though they were simple, even though they were always the same item, just a different new item. I have gratitude when I've saved up money and delayed gratification and then purchased it with saved money because I know that there's no debt involved. A lot of these things help us be happy with the things that we have. And this gratitude can actually help us determine the difference between needs and wants. And I don't know if that connection has ever been made before, but when we are happy with less, it is easier for us to see the difference between needs and wants. I see so many of these as a continuum into the next attribute. And the next attribute, after we've looked at all of these others, is focusing on relationships and experiences over things. I grew up, as I've shared before, with a homemade camper that my dad made on the back of a pickup, and we went camping. I wouldn't call it camping. We went on vacations. I have been to all 50 states and I hit my 50th state, I think, in about 2004. But we focused on experiences, even though we didn't have a lot of stuff and we traveled frugally. I did that with my kids too. By the time most of them were out of high school, they'd been to 30 some states. Many times we had a tent and a van and they would sit in the back and play cards and they would have such great bonding time. When we have the big houses and everybody has their own rooms and everybody has their electronic devices, there's not a lot of that connection sometimes that goes on. But you put 6 kids in a van with a tent or two, and let me tell you, there's a lot of connection going on in that back seat. From them yelling from the back, "Mom, will you make her put her shoes back on? Her feet stink," to me telling someone, I'm sure she didn't mean to rub her toe on your straw. I mean, there's just connections that go together. And also raising them in a household with one bathroom. 3 daughters, 3 sons, one bathroom. Let me tell you, those experiences are some of the things they remember, that they still laugh about today, and that still connect them as adults. So focusing on those experiences, that's just a natural progression from living frugally, and it's something that builds relationships. I hope you've enjoyed this video that I put together today as much as I enjoyed putting it together for you. If you enjoyed this channel, please give me a thumbs up and think about sticking around and subscribing. We would love to have you be part of our frugal community. We have some really great people here with some great ideas that they share, and I would love to have you stick around. Thanks for listening today, and I hope to see you in the next video.